Guys, welcome to my channel. Let's talk about some recent horror reads. What I'm excited about most is that I feel like I've read a decent amount of books from female authors, which is always just nice. It's just always nice to see these ladies, these women kicking ass and taking names in the horror genre. First book I want to talk about is White Horse by Erica T. Worth. This is about an indigenous woman whose cousin discovers this old bracelet belonging to her mother, and when she touches the bracelet, it brings forth a vision of her mother's ghost in this dark, mysterious entity. And after she finds this bracelet, she sets out to learn more about her mother and what happened to her. It's a really interesting, unique story. I love the main character because she's just a normal person who is just living life normally. There's nothing crazy about her, and she gets pulled into this unique situation, and she's really just trying to uncover her identity and her past. She's a huge Stephen King fan, and there's some interesting Stephen King-esque moments in this book that I think fans of Stephen King will really appreciate. I think that there's some disturbing imagery in this, but I don't think the supernatural ghostly elements of this are what I expected. Like, we don't see that a whole lot. I would have liked to have seen more of the ghostly visions, but I just had a blast following this character. Then I picked up Blood on the Tracks Volume 1. I've seen a few people talking about this and raving about it, and I don't get it. It was fine and dandy. I felt like nothing really happened, and it was all a setup for the next books in the series. And manga, or manga, however you say it, is expensive, and I don't have the money. If I'm not hooked by the end of the first volume, I don't care. So this is about this mother and son, and the mom is weird, and she's super overprotective of her son, and then something strange happens, and he realizes that his mom is hiding a dark secret. It sounds and feels very much Bates Motel-y, but not as good to me. I don't know, I could be wrong. I know a lot of people love it. I wasn't hooked, so bye-bye. Thank you. Then I picked up Luminal Zone by our boy, our king, Junji Ito, and I really liked this one. It's beautiful, first of all. It's gorgeous. This cover, the artwork, it's disturbing, it's unsettling, it's everything you know to love about Junji Ito. The stories in this are really interesting. Like, there's a story about this weeping woman who's a professional funeral mourner, which I thought was interesting, and there's a story that's centered on the suicide forest, and just a lot of really unique stories that I enjoyed. So I highly recommend this one. I also read Lucky Girl by M. Rickert, and it's very short. It's a novella, and I thought it was a lot of fun. It's about a group of friends who I don't really know why they're friends, but they gather every year around Christmas to give each other gifts and tell each other ghost stories, and then I think they reunite years later and they uncover some dark secrets about each other. I thought this was well done. I thought it was fun, and it was an interesting mystery. Then I finally picked up The Shuttering by Anya Alborn. I liked this one. I didn't love it as I expected to, but it was a fun, good time. It's about a group of friends who are staying in this cabin in the woods in the middle of winter. They go up there to ski and such, and then they find themselves being targeted by these weird creatures in the night. This one reads very cinematically. It was really fast-paced and unsettling and has some really disturbing moments. The kills are great. There's a lot of gory moments, and the creatures are terrifying. I love the setup of the creatures, and you get to see different moments throughout the town and how these creatures are making their way through the town before they meet our main group of people. The group of main characters is really hard to connect with and root for because they're very unlikable, but I guess over the book I did kind of connect with them. I found their stories to be interesting, but I didn't care whether they lived or died. But I think it's a fun slasher set in winter. Then I picked up Festival by Christopher Golden and Tim Levin. This is a graphic novel. It's about a group of people who gather at this mysterious ancient festival. It's a music festival that commemorates a long ago Viking slaughter. And then something happens where these Vikings are evoked. Their spirits are evoked, and they basically are summoned on this group of people at the festival, and all hell breaks loose. I thought it was fun. I think it would be more fun if you're super into heavy metal and music festivals and all of that. Then I picked up The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson, which I really enjoyed. This is a retelling of Carrie by Stephen King, and I thought that Tiffany D. Jackson did a fantastic job at modernizing this story. The story is centered on this young girl named Maddie who is white passing, and her father tells her she can't show anybody who she really is. He makes her hide her hair and her skin color, everything. Like, she can't be who she is. And one day it rains and her hair gets wet and her secret is revealed to her classmates who are shocked. And the story centers around themes of racism and identity and just a lot of interesting things. And we follow 3 different characters who are kind of affected by this story. We follow Maddie, she's basically the Carrie of the story, and she is uncovering these special abilities that she has while also trying to learn more about her identity and learn about what it means to be black. And then we follow this other character who's named Kenny. He's also black, and he's struggling with his identity in a different way. It all culminates at this prom, which we all know what goes down at the prom in Carrie. And the way Tiffany G. Jackson built up to this prom was fantastic. The way the events play out at the prom is so good. It's so disturbing, so chaotic, very cinematic, and shockingly dark. I was like, holy crap. It felt like a catastrophic event in comparison to Carrie, even though I know Carrie was just as bad. But the stuff that's happening to the girl is all rooted in racism, which just makes it even more, like 10 times more appalling. I just thought this was really well done. I want to read more by this author. Then I picked up Come Closer by Sarah Gran, which is a possession horror about a young woman who is experiencing some strange stuff in her life and she may be possessed. I really liked this one. It's not over the top, gory horror, not like The Exorcist. It's more psychological, where you're in this woman's head and you're seeing how the world is changing for her from her perspective. And it's terrifying. And I like that you're seeing things as the character's seeing them. So when she does things, she'll do something or take part in something where she doesn't remember, and she's waking up after the fact and she's watching almost as an outer body experience herself doing these things that she would never do. And it's really scary. And just how nobody around her understands what's going on. They think she's just being crazy or whatever. And I feel like it's a good commentary on how women are often treated, especially with mental health stuff. Really unique possession story. As I've gotten older, I've grown to appreciate stories like this. It feels like a very adult story where this woman is reevaluating her life. Up until that point, she's married, she has a job she seemingly enjoys, and then it all changes one day and she has to figure out what's going on. It's really terrifying. And it's hard for me to explain, but I really enjoyed it. And then lastly, I finished it off with C.V. Hunt's Horrorama, and I didn't like this one. This is a collection of 3 novelettes, and it's supposed to be presented like it's a 24-hour horror marathon. I really liked the introduction from C.V. Hunt where they say they wanted this to be presented as like a movie marathon from one of the movie hosts like Svengoolie or like Elvira, and that's how this is presented. Like each could be consumed as a 1-hour movie. And the first story, it's a self-storage centered story where this person gets a job working the night shift at a self-storage facility. That right there, I love that setup. I didn't like where the story went. It became a little bit more sci-fi than my liking. Second story is centered on this group of men who are camping in the wilderness, and they encounter this woman who's got some issues, and there's some wolfy stuff going on. I hated that story with every fiber of my being. I hated the men in the story. They were just so deplorable and unlikable, and the shit they said, I was just like, is this real? I had to keep reminding myself, these types of stories, this type of grindhouse style story is supposed to be over the top and shocking and ridiculous and campy, and I kept trying to remind myself of that when I was reading this second story, and I guess it succeeds in that. It just wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy it. The third story I thought was the best. It's called The Vessel, I believe, and it's about this cult that has set its sights on this woman to be their next vessel for their ancient god or whatever, and there's this guy who is also trying to warn her. He's investigating the cult, and it was an interesting setup. I love that concept. I just feel like it fell apart towards the end where I didn't know what was even happening. I love the overall concept of this, and I would like to see future Horroramas like Volume 2, Volume 3, where they come out and highlight different stories. It would have been interesting to feature some stories from some female writers because, I don't know, I think these were all stories by men. I could be wrong. But I just love this cover. It's so cool. So it didn't work for me. It might work for you. So there you have it. That's everything I've read recently. Let me know what books you've read recently, if you read and enjoyed any of these, and what books you plan on reading next. And thank you so much for watching, guys. I will catch you next time. Bye.